Manny Fiteni, welcome to the Star Coach Show.
Thank you so much. Much
Thank you for
appreciated.
being up at before the crack of dawn to be with us in your beautiful country of Australia. Here I sit in the middle of the afternoon in Texas, and I'm just hoping that your day turns out to be as good as my day has already been. I'm
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 glad to hear
looking
that.
forward to you having a lovely day. And as I said when we began, well, Manny, let's begin your day together and set it on a great path.
Sounds good.
All right. So, all of you, I want to welcome you to the Star Coach Show and remind you that wherever you're listening, if you follow the show, you won't miss a minute of the content that we have with wonderful guests like Manny. Now, Manny and I today are going to talk about the pillars of building a highly effective and performing team. Who doesn't want to know about that? We're going to be leaning into leadership. We're going to be leaning into something called mind congruency, which sounds like a really good thing, doesn't it? Don't we want to be congruent? Of course, we want to be congruent. So, we're going to talk to Manny about what that is all about. And what is it about this gentleman that makes him the person to talk about this? Well, I'm glad you asked. Manny is the CEO of My Growth Corporation. He is a pioneering leadership strategist with 30 plus years. I know it looks like it couldn't possibly be that he has 30 plus
It
years,
is,
but yes, he
unfortunately.
does. He does have 30 plus years of corporate experience specializing in transformational personal development. So, what is the core methodology? It's the mind congruency that I was just talking about. And we're going to talk about what is mind congruency. What does that approach include? I could read it for you, but instead I'm going to have Manny tell you about it. He uses innovative platforms such as Mind Growth 360, which is a personal development network that he is the founder of, as well as Creators Agency, which is a brand elevation platform. As an author, an international speaker, Manny is out there providing actionable strategies for personal transformation. He's been kind enough to come here and offer those very things to us. Manny, once again, welcome to the show. Delighted to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. So we talked about that there are just so many things that you could bring to the show. We took a while to really like boil that, settle it down, and we came up with that we're going to start with these three pillars of building a highly performing team. As you mentioned before we started recording, we can be in a leadership role. We could be promoted to a leadership role, but that doesn't necessarily know that we know how to lead a high performing team. So, what is it that made you create these three pillars or kind of led to the the formation of these three pillars for you?
So I think it's a combination of things. As you mentioned, had been in corporate for over 30 years. Majority of that was in management. And obviously, when you are a manager, you're in an observation environment where you can see how the people above you and people that are your colleagues and how they operate and how they get results if they get results. Also, when I left school, I always had this interest in personal development. So I was constantly reading, constantly listening to things. And I guess it's almost this culmination of the two, which is where I am today. So, yes, effectively, leadership, there's a difference between management and leadership. And the difference is that anyone can be a manager, anyone can be appointed to be a manager. In a lot of cases, they appoint maybe the best salesperson or someone who's had some good results, but that does not make them a leader. It just means they've been put in charge of people. A leader is someone that's able to pull the team together, raise the team to new levels, and together they move towards the goals that they're trying to achieve.
So good. So does what does somebody who really wants to be a leader versus a manager, what do they need to be thinking about? Um, what can you, how could you help? Let's imagine we're talking to them right now. How are you going to
Sure.
help them move into leadership instead of management?
So a lot of it is a mindset and also an understanding. It's a knowledge. capacity. So I've mentioned to you before, or I think you mentioned at the start of your show, the three pillars. And the three pillars, essentially, if you'd like me to go into that,
Yes.
is environment, true leadership, and mind congruency. So we talk about environment. When you go into a team, and all teams are a little bit different, sales teams versus operational teams, etc. The common part is you set boundaries of what can and can't be done. So, for example, if you're encouraging an environment whereby you help each other as opposed to it's just about me. Now, you're still going to get that inside your teams whereby an individual is going to go, it's just about me and my results and how good do I look. But you encourage and reward those that are helping each other lift each other. So that's what I talk about environment. There's a lot to environment, but environment, for example, could be a lot of people talk about, oh, I have an open door policy. Anyone come and see me? Talk to your staff and see if they actually think they feel comfortable coming to see you because not all staff do. And there's usually a reason if that's the case. Maybe you're not approachable, but you think you are. So environment's really important of creating this environment that people know. Let's say, for example, having worked for large corporations, your team might be very different to other teams in the organization. And sometimes your team will, if they're dealing with clientele or they're dealing with other managers, sometimes they get caught in the middle. They could have made a mistake. And there's other parts of the organization saying, let's fire this person. Now,
Mm.
unless this person has done something illegal and purposeful, they're looking for their manager to support them. Because I know for fact, the moment the manager throws them under the bus, everybody talks about it and no
Right.
one
So it
trusts
doesn't
you
just
after that.
influence that relationship, it influences your whole team. If
Correct.
my manager or if my leader is so quick to throw one of my teammates under the bus, none of us are safe.
Correct. Now that's not to say that there are not occasions that you have to fire
Right.
someone, but that could be. But everyone usually knows why that person's going
Right.
because they've seen it themselves. So the other part is true leadership, and true leadership is things. There's a few components, but they're things like if I tell you to do something, Meg, if you're working for me and I say, look, I need you to do this, but I then go do the opposite because I'm the
Ah,
boss, so I can do whatever I want. If you come in with that mentality, again, you're not building a team now. You've got everyone else just taking orders from you.
right.
And
And no trust, no credibility if you're not doing
correct,
what you're not modeling the way for everyone
correct.
else.
So integrity is really important. And I know if I spoke to lots of managers, they think they are doing it. But until they hold a mirror to themselves or someone else, like a coach, holds a mirror up to them and says, actually, listen to your language. This is how you operate.
Mhm.
And this is the experience of your team. So you're not creating a team, you're creating and there are some people that do this naturally. They try to divide people because they think they got control. When in reality, they don't. They're always going to have someone sooner or later come after them.
Mm.
So true leadership, even though I haven't gone into great detail, is about your integrity and about leading from the front, not telling everyone else to do what to do. Delegation's
Right.
important, but if you're just a delegator and everyone goes, they really don't know what they're talking about, you're going to fall by the wayside.
And then the third piece I'm so intrigued about is mind congruency. What do we need to understand about mind congruency?
So let's imagine for a moment, everyone here is using a computer, and on the computer we have an interface, which is the front bit. We can see the output of all the code that sits behind the computer. So in mind congruency, I talk about the conscious mind, which is like this interface, this outgoing thing. Uh, and then you've got the operating system in a computer, which is your subconscious. Now, the subconscious is effectively programmed mostly when you're a child. So if all of you think for a moment of things that you said when you're a kid and go, I will never do what mum does or never do what dad does. I'm not going to do those things. But
I
guaranteed
do
as
it
you get
all the time.
Right. I've had
I
this
am a clone of
conversation.
my mom. Yes.
Right. I've had this conversation many, many times, and everyone tends to agree that yes, even though they don't want to, because a lot of times you go, I'm not going to be like that. But from a very early age, when we're born, the conscious mind, so let me explain the two. The conscious mind is the one that makes decisions. It's the one that has the short-term memory. It's the one that knows that you actually exist. I know that I'm here. This is your conscious mind. The subconscious is, as I said, like this operating system. It is all this programming that is playing out as you trigger it to do something. Now, imagine for a moment, I always use the example of New Year's Eve, and I've said this before to people, but it's New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, and you've decided that you're going to go to the gym or you're going to take up a new sport or do something new, and you pay for your membership, you start going to the gym and you go, "Oh, I'm getting really sore," and then you start making excuses. So effectively, what is happening is the operating system or the subconscious is saying, "I'm not. This is not one of my habits. This is not what I do. So until you change it, I'm going to kind of fight you." And so we always have in our heads this inner battle between a goal, setting some type of goal, and the way the operating system has been built. Now, as I said, it's been built from childhood. So when you're born until you're, near 10 or 8 or 10, it is purely the subconscious there. It's just being fed programs, usually from your parents. And then as you get older, the conscious mind starts to come in. So when it comes to leadership, if you're not aware of, firstly, your own programming, and then you're not aware of the people you're dealing with. Now, for a lot of people listening to this, this is confronting. I don't want to know the psychology of the people I'm dealing with. Your coaches probably do. If they're a great coach, they will want to understand the psychology. But if they're an entrepreneur, they might go, I've got too much on my plate. And I get that. But this is one of the greatest skill sets you're ever going to build, because once you understand this, you then understand how to talk to the subconscious to create change within your teams.
Mhm.
So if you like, I can go into that, but uh,
Well, I I would, and I would also like to align mind congruency with the true leadership traits. Like what does mind congruency bring to these leadership traits? So which way would you like to go?
well, I can do it either direction. I can tell you how to talk to people, which I do teach.
Okay, so
So
how do
I'll
we talk
talk
with
about that
people?
briefly.
Yeah.
So the subconscious is different to the conscious mind. If I show you a movie, you get entertained. But if the movie's been designed a certain way, the subconscious, which the only way to talk to it is through images and symbols, picks up the meaning behind it. So
Wow.
I was watching lately, I've seen it a million times, is the Rocky movies, right? Sylvester Stallone actually understood this without talking about the mind. He understood building a story about emotions.
Mm.
And effectively, when you are talking to a staff member, an employee, or anybody for that matter, or a client, if you're a coach, people have their own barriers that they put up.
Mm-hmm.
When you start to tell them a story, the conscious mind is getting engaged in it. If it's a good story and you've thought about how to tell it, they get engaged. But the subconscious gets the meaning behind this. Now, I use this a lot in management because you do get resistance. And if you want to break resistance, you have to get past the conscious mind. And so,
Mm-hmm.
storytelling, if you don't have that already, then this is something you really want to learn.
So, what is it about storytelling that helps people maybe break past the barriers or get to the what we say often in coaching is the thing beneath the thing, right?
Okay.
The
So,
the
that's
the
exactly what
thing,
we're
the heart
talking
of
about.
things. Yeah.
So, what you're doing, so the conscious mind's almost like a gatekeeper. And sometimes if I said, Meg, I need you to do something or do something, and it depends on how I say it, of course, part of you might go, I can't see the reason why we're doing any of this. This doesn't make any sense to me. But if I tell you a story, and it can be a real story or not a real story, I usually tell real stories from past experience. You tell a story, and the person is getting the story part, but the subconscious is going, that makes perfect sense. I understand
Okay.
why I should change the operating system. So this is why stories are really, there's a lot of different ways, but storytelling in business and coaching is really, really important because it's allowing you to bypass what's stopping their resistance.
Love that. So what that triggers for me is, you know, when I teach new coaches to invite a client into a success experience and talk about a time that they were more successful in the past with something similar than they currently feel in the certain situation. But what I tell them is don't just ask them about that. Ask them, what were you thinking then? What were you feeling then? What were the things you were telling yourself then? How were other people engaging with you then? So really it's getting the client to tell a story about their past success that's going to link them into more of that experience than just what
Correct.
their conscious
So,
mind is
so they're
telling them.
effectively walking into a past experience and relating
Right.
to it, which is what we
Right.
try to do when we tell these stories.
Right. So good. All right. So I think you've done a good job helping us understand mind congruency, helping us understand that we are operating just a small part on the conscious, and a lot of the unconscious is where the drivers come from, or where the
Until you're able to tap in to an individual,
mm-hmm,
then you will get resistance at different points.
right. So as leaders, we've got people coming in lots of different ways. When we try to effectively lead teams, lead them to high performance, how we're showing up, you talked about earlier. Are you modeling the way? Are you doing what you say you're going to do? Are you communicating your message? Is the way you're communicating the same? Is it being received the way that you think you're delivering it? And so a lot of that leans into true leadership traits. And I'm wondering if you'd be willing to walk through your
Sure.
6 true leadership traits and describe them just a little bit so that people, I want my listeners to walk away from every episode with something to think about, applying, uh, maybe thinking about more deeply, or certainly some actionable strategies. And I think that your leadership traits do exactly that. So
Okay.
can let's dive
So
into
let's
number
read
one.
them off. Okay.
All right.
So so my suggestion to people is to understand. Actually, I have 11. I'm sure that's all my traits. Yeah.
Oh,
That's actually, I
well,
probably said six
I
because I
don't
have
know
six on
why.
one page when I read it. So that's not your fault. That's
Okay,
probably me.
okay, okay.
There's a lot of different traits. So the first one is the power of us. So you're driving a mentality that everything we do is about us. It's a bit like a relationship with a partner.
Right.
When
The
you make a
power of
decision,
us, not just
yes,
me, us.
correct. So there's always going to be individuals, and I mentioned this earlier, that will perform better than others, and that's a given. But all individuals become a team when they're thinking about lifting others within the team. So they effectively take on leadership roles themselves, and that's what I look for when I'm building teams: is teaching you to become the leader within my team.
So good. And how often, Manny, do you see a leader who is almost afraid to allow their people to grow or to step into their own leadership? It's almost like I've got to hold them down so that I look better as the leader. Now, I don't work with a lot of leaders like that, but I certainly have encountered some leaders like that, and trying to help them understand that it's the power when your team takes on leadership roles, it makes you look better as a leader, not less powerful than a leader.
From past experience in my own leadership roles, a lot of corporations tend to put certain managers on pedestals because they've inherited one or two really good operators and they outperform. The team looks good. Everyone else isn't that great. They're mediocre to ordinary, but they have two or three really good operators who are self-driven. It has nothing to do with the manager and potentially in that case. And so managers have to become more aware that they're not perfect. In 99% of the cases, no one ever taught them to be a leader. They just got
Mm-hmm.
the job. They were
Right.
ambitious, they got the job, and suddenly they're in charge. And two things tend to happen when they suddenly get in charge. Number one, it goes to their head and they go, well, I'm now the boss and everyone calls me boss. So I kind of feel that I'm really important and I've got all these people around me. But then there's the other manager that says, no, no, I'm nurturing something. Like when you grow a tree, you put it in the ground, but you don't walk away and come back, 5 years later and go, hey, look, there's a tree, because it's probably crooked now. And the difference is that you need to nurture it, you need to water it, you need to help it grow straight. And the same thing applies to building teams. So the second trait is, if you'd like me to continue with them,
Yeah, I would.
is
Thank you.
team first. So when you're making decisions for your team, and I'm just reading these out, and the direction of your business, you always consider your team and how it affects them.
Mm.
So there's been times in my career where I have had not enough people to cover an organization for what we did, but everybody demanded it, and I had to find a way to cover it. And I would make a decision and say, well, I'm going to make this person cover this, 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 and this. But what I used to do, and not in all cases, but in this particular case, is I would ring them and I'd say, this is my thinking. I'm looking at moving you over to take over this kind of area. And they would say, Manny, you haven't considered one, two, three. And I go, you're absolutely right. I hadn't considered those because I'm no longer in the field and
Right.
they're being affected by what's around them. So having that understanding as opposed to just do it gets their buy-in.
Which is what empowers teams and will help people stay and all those things that are important that we talk about in coaching. So well done, Manny. What's
Oh,
the third
thank you.
one?
The third one is mindset. So I've pretty much talked about my congruency. It's something that never gets discussed in management, or I don't think I've never seen it in an executive meeting that everyone goes, well, let's understand how people think. Or they've provided training around it. And I think this is the difference between a lot of people. The fourth one is, and I've kind of alluded to it before, was consultation. Everyone likes to be asked their opinion. It makes people feel valued, and that's really important
Mhm.
inside a team. Um, where are we? You feel more valued if your boss asks what you think. So I've already given this example,
Right.
but it's really important that we do consider other people.
Well, and I love that because one of the things that I believe makes leaders thrive as leaders and helps their team thrive is when we employ some of the concepts of coaching into leadership. And so
Hmm.
I'll say to the leaders I work with, how would that conversation change if you had asked two or three questions before you dove into telling? If you harvested a little bit from your people before you go to plant all your seeds all over the place without paying any attention. So I love that, consult, like invite, and realize that other people have their own wisdom to share. When they're able to share their own wisdom, they feel more valued. So love it. What about
Correct.
number five?
Again, we've kind of touched on this is open door. So if your team is scared to approach you, then you kind of don't have a team. You just have you have a group of employees that have been given to you. Um, Open door really means, and that doesn't mean that you can't be strong. It basically is saying to people that yes, I value your opinion. If something's bothering you, come to me. Now, I've had people in my teams that have had family members dying, have had problems with their marriages. Now, some managers might argue and go, well, that's not my problem, that's their problem. But it's really your problem because they bring it to work.
Right.
So until you
Yeah.
can
None.
understand it, go
We
ahead.
can't compartmentalize like that. It's going to influence. So yeah, and unless we just lead robots, this is going to be an issue.
And you don't have to be their best friend, but
Mm-mm.
you need to be able to lead them. They become very loyal when you're there for them during their
Mhm.
toughest times, not when they're just kicking goals and everyone, and the manager goes, yeah, I want to take a photo with them. They need to be there when they're down because then you are leading them.
earlier, Manny,
Um,
you had mentioned, I want to interrupt you for a second. You had mentioned, you might think you have an open door or that people can come to you, but they might not feel that way. Now, my thought about that is if we just ask, people are not going to tell us. So, how else could
hmm.
people get feedback about the way that their teams really feel about them?
It's a good question. You're going to find in most teams that some team members are closer to you for various reasons. So those that become close to you are more likely to give you feedback. And sometimes I would ask. I mean, in my last corporate role, I had they were employed and self-employed people, and so you get a real mix, especially when self-employed people don't actually work for you, but you've got to manage this whole organization. So I would ask trusted members that I trusted, that I thought would tell me the truth. I don't want to hear that I'm just fantastic. And they would give me the feedback. And I would sometimes push them on it and go, okay, is that the case? Or are you just saying that? So I think sometimes you have to ask, but you also get a feel if you're in tune with people.
Okay. Thank you for letting me divert to that. So we've gone just real quick. Number one was power of us. Number two, team first. Number three, mindset. Number four, consulting. Number five, open door. Number six,
Active listening. I'm sure that every coach listening to this has heard this
what?
before.
Active listening. That's one of my competencies. Yes.
Okay, so well, I'm teaching nothing new here, but what I've kind of written here is that have you ever spoken to a friend, colleague, or significant partner and said to yourself, they're not really listening to me? You kind of know as one does, no one's listening. They're there, and I've seen this with managers. The staff member's trying to tell them something really important to them, and they're thinking about the next thing that's coming up.
Right.
So I don't think this is new to your listeners, or I hope this is not new to your coaches at least. But active listening is exceptionally important because when you listen, and I mean truly listen, you pick up on syntax and things that they're talking about that gives you the real story below. And that's
Once again,
combined,
the thing beneath the thing, ladies and
yeah,
gentlemen.
and that's
Mm-hmm.
combined with body language. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times people who like to lie, their body language doesn't match. So I'm sure you might talk about this, but this is also really important, is that I've been able to determine if the manager's telling me the truth or not, or a staff member, by the body language that they're giving off as they're telling me something. And I'm going, they just lied to me and they think I don't know. So yeah, so there are a few others. There's actually 11, so it's up to you if we've got time, if you want to go through the
Oh,
rest.
we've got time. What's number seven?
Okay. Number 7 is to back them. So there'll be times that staff will fall. I think I've spoken this already, but there'll be times that they fall and they get in trouble. And they need to know that if they fall, you're going to help pick them up. Unless the person has deliberately broken the law and you really can't defend this now,
Right.
they need to know that, I've worked in banking organizations where I would manage financial planning teams. And financial
Mm-hmm.
planning is almost like this outlier in banks, or at least it was. And so the employees of the bank weren't necessarily nice to my team in particular. And then they would make things up and go to their managers and make these things up. And then their managers would approach me and I would say to them, okay, well, let me get the story from both sides first before we decide who's right or wrong. Now, in this example, 100% the banker was lying because they needed the planner to write new business for them and they got bonuses off the back of it.
Wow.
So yeah, really, it is really important that your staff member knows that you're going to go into bat for them. You're not going to go,
Right.
you know what, this is all too hard. I'll get somebody else.
Yeah, I've
So,
worked with leaders who say, my leader is just not willing to push back for our team, or they're not willing to really support the team. They just fold whenever, they throw the team under the bus, and
yeah,
that's just not. So to your point, to back them, people are going to make mistakes, but if it's an honest mistake, or
Correct.
if you're being asked to do something that is maybe something you struggle with. I mean, if you know your leader is at least going to get curious and ask about and assume positive intent rather than throw you under the bus. We want
Correct.
to be bad. Okay, beautiful. This is not axe murderers on your team.
No.
This is like when you
These are,
genuinely
well,
go ahead.
this is you years ago,
Yeah,
right? This is you as a junior. So if you had a manager that threw you under the bus or who didn't listen, or how did it affect your career?
thank you.
So it's like family members. You're there to protect them. And when they know you're there to protect them, they'll protect you.
So good. All right, number 8.
Okay, improvement. Improvement should be an attitude that everyone holds within the team, so including the manager. And improvement takes several forms. There can be knowledge, skill sets, or even the mind congruency we talked about earlier. The more you are willing to improve yourself and those in your team and take them on the journey, the better you are as a team.
Ooh, yes. Don't be afraid of improvement. Like it stretches, it might feel a little uncomfortable sometimes, and yet it's really what keeps us from getting stagnant, right?
Correct.
All right, number 9.
So we're getting there. This we've talked about as well. So integrity and honesty. So without
Mm,
these two, you have no credibility with your teams. If you lie, some people wear it on their chest that they're really good at lying. So they love the fact they get away with things. Um, Whenever I take over a team, one of the first statements I kind of make to a team is, um, "Don't lie to me. I'll always find out that you're lying. So it's not worth it." Um, and especially if you want me to support you, because if you're lying to me, how would I know what's the truth and what's not the truth if you're going to continually do that? So in
and
our
how can you
team,
expect me to back you if you're not being honest with me? I
correct.
will back you when you're honest.
And that's part of our environment, because in our environment, that's what we expect. We expect honesty and integrity with each other and with clients as well. But that's
Right.
what we expect. And that's up to the manager, because if you've ever worked in lots of teams, I've worked in teams where the team's working really well and then they change the manager, and the manager is getting pressure from their manager, and their whole personality changes from being a pretty decent human being to like, why are you doing this? Why are you making all these things up? Because they don't have the strength to deal with their own manager. And that is a learning for individuals as well.
Right.
Number 10.
Number 10.
So number 10 is cut your losses.
Mm.
It's very, no one likes to fire someone. No one likes to get rid of someone. And sometimes it's because an organization is reducing staff. Sometimes it's because
Hmm.
the staff member is not part of the team. Now,
Right.
I don't enjoy it, but I've had to fire people, but that everybody gets a fair chance before that happens. So I don't
Right.
just walk in and go, right, today's your last day. Essentially, larger corporations in Australia, at least, you have to give them three meetings. The first two, one's a kind of a warning, second one is an official warning, and the third one is you're out, you've had your chances. I think that as a manager or as a leader, it's one thing to say your numbers are not good enough, but a leader will say, well, why don't we work out how to improve those numbers? As opposed to, well,
Hmm.
if you don't get them within 3 months, you're fired, you're out of here, which
Right.
pushes pressure on them to go look for another job instead, anyhow.
Right. Well, and then the other side of that coin, not to be a negative Nelly, but if we are expanding a team and growing a team and creating a culture, there are times that somebody is not good for the team. I mean, we give them a chance, we get
Absolutely.
but that keeping them on actually ends up hurting a high performing team. So we've
So
got to
that's
make
actually
tough
what,
decisions sometimes as
yeah, so that's
leaders.
what that's what cut your losses actually means. Um,
Yeah.
if they're not aligned with your values of your team and the efforts, and they're having no impact, because a lot of cases they don't want to have impact, or things have changed for
Hmm.
within the team. Um, then you need to remove that poison because their negativity is going to be said in the corridors of the organization where sooner or later the whole team starts thinking like them.
Right. So it's like, one bad apple kind of thing. That
Correct.
whole
Correct.
all these little cliche things we can bring in. And spot on. So that's we sometimes as a leader, and that's we got to cut our losses. And drum roll, please. What is number 11?
Number 11 is observation.
Ooh,
So people give off telltale signs. If once you become quite good at this, you'll start to notice things of their facial expressions when it doesn't match what they're saying to you, or there's a sudden movement in their face or their eyes, and you go and you say to yourself, "No, I don't think that's quite true. I need to dig a little bit deeper than that." So, observation is actually one of the most powerful tools of a manager or a leader, no matter how busy they are. Because if you're not observing your team or things that they're saying or actions that they're doing, then either they're not going to do a very as good a job or they're going to undermine you. So you need to have that. It's a level of intuition and it takes a lot of work. Um, I can think of an example when I was in my last role, there was a manager in another state telling me problems with her staff member. And I guess this is maybe an experience thing, but I said to her, this is what he's doing. And she said, no, he's not. He wouldn't do that. And I said, yes, he is. This is exactly what he's going to do. And he's going to do this next. She goes, no, he wouldn't do that. And I said, well, okay, that's up to you. 2 months later, she came back and she said, how did you know? I said, because I've been observing people for a very long time. I pay attention to how people operate. And this goes back to my congruency. I'm actually looking at their operating system.
right. Well, and you're really talking about kind of communication congruency, right? And behavioral
Mm-hmm.
congruency and all the things that,
Mm-hmm.
like, if something doesn't match, pay attention, observe. And that's what, and the other thing is, it makes people not feel invisible either. I mean, like when we're observing, there's a positive aspect to that. My manager cares enough to like, or my leader knows what I'm doing. They're paying attention. Now,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, if I'm incongruent in my communication, I might not like you to pay that much attention. But as a whole, being an observant leader makes people be seen and heard and valued. So well done, Manny. We are approaching the end of our interview.
Okay.
I am going to
Well, then we
real
got it.
quick give everybody the 11 leadership traits. We're going to run through them quickly. The power of us, team first, mindset, consulting, open door, active listening, back them, improvement, integrity and honesty, cut your losses, and observation. So
Got it.
there was so much great information in that. As we are wrapping up our time together, what do you want people to walk away thinking about?
I think because I do focus on the mind congruency as well as everything else we've discussed, I think people need to look in the mirror and not physically look in the mirror, but look in the mirror of how they operate. And it isn't easy because we don't always like getting this reflection of what we're really like because we think we're really good in a lot of cases until someone
And
tells
we
us
try to be
otherwise.
good. Yeah.
Well, we try to be good. So I think awareness is probably the key. Become aware of how you're operating. This is what I've always done and everything I've ever done, didn't matter if it was sales or management, is put yourself in the position of the other person and imagine yourself through their eyes. And when you can do that, if you build that as a skill set, you'll then be able to say, oh, okay, maybe that's not the way I should be saying this because if I heard that, I wouldn't like it.
So wise. So wise. Manny, thank you so much. If people want to know more about you and what you do, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Go to mygrowthcorporation.com and there you'll see all our companies. We're actually about to build out a new app. So keep an eye out for that because that's going to speed up learning in both organizations and individuals.
So good. We will have all the information to connect with Manny in the show notes, as well as his full bio. If you're watching us on YouTube, grab all those links right below here. Otherwise, they're in the show notes at starcoachshow.com. Manny, once again, such a joy to have you here with us. And I just want to say, as we're closing out, that we are all here on the earth together for a reason. So be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Let's do the heavy lifting together. If you enjoy what we do at the Star Coach Show, take a second to subscribe. And until next week, this is Meg Rentschler wishing you the very best for your success. Manny, you're awesome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.